Are you lost in the chaotic whirlwind of day-to-day busyness? Do you yearn for a deeper sense of meaning and purpose in your life? Welcome to Be You, Your Story, Your Purpose, the podcast dedicated to empowering women on their journey of self-discovery and finding their true purpose through their own story. I'm your host, Brenda Simmons. Welcome, my friends, to the podcast. I'm so glad that you're joining me today. I have moved around quite a bit in my life. I grew up in Arizona and then we moved to California. When I graduated, I moved out to Utah and went to school there. Then once my husband and I were married, we started out in Utah and then we moved to Arizona and then we moved to Missouri and then to Utah. And so I know what it's like to have to start in a new place. And it's really difficult. And in each place that I've moved to, it's always taken me a while to figure out, where my tribe is, who are the soul connections, who are the people that I need to surround myself with. And this has actually become even more difficult, ironically, as I've gotten older. And I'm not exactly sure why. I kind of wonder if just being young, you're thrown into school and you're doing projects and stuff. And when you're older, you don't necessarily have that automatic access to people. And so it takes a little bit, or at least for me, it's taken me a little bit longer to figure out how to find those people that need to be in my soul circle. So how do you find your tribe, your soul connections? I was once talking with a friend of mine, and she's a dear friend, and I love her so much. And I can't even remember what we were talking about. But at the end, she said something like, it just goes to show you that you should only hang around people who are like you. And so what she meant by this was, people who have the same opinions, people who participate in the same activities, people with the same political and religious affiliation, people who look the same, people who come from the same location. And I thought about that and I thought, well, I actually don't agree with that statement because I know so many people and I have so many people that are in my world that are so different from me. And I realized that, as I've paid more attention to this sentiment, it's not just my friend who believes this. I believe this is what our culture teaches us. It teaches us that if we don't affiliate only with people who are the same as us, whether it's opinions or activities or political and religious affiliations, if we, races and genders and the whole shebang, you name it, that we are being disloyal to those affiliations. But to me, that just doesn't seem logical because one of my top values is progression. And I know that if I only hang around people who are similar to me, I'm not really growing. I'm not challenged. I'm not, learning about the world and all these fascinating people and the experiences that they've had. And so I really, really value different people from me. And so I love to look for people who have different opinions, who enjoy different hobbies from me, who live in different places, who have different political and religious ideations, who are different races from me, who live in different cities and states and countries and even continents. And I have had so much fun in my life getting to know these people. And I have found that honestly, it's the people who I don't expect to connect with. Those are the ones that I do the most. And I don't know why that is, but and there are other people who I think, oh my gosh, we're so different. There's no way that we have anything in common. And yet it is those people who have become the people that I have looked up to and the people who I admire the most. And so what is it? What is it about having these differences that is so amazing? I have found that they're not in my tribe because of who they are or where they live or what they look like. They're in my tribe because of what is in their heart. I feel a very deep connection to their soul. I was listening to the book Worthy by Jamie Kern Lima. And if you haven't read this, and I know I say this with all the books that I read, but truly, this is a book that everybody should read. It is a wonderful book, wonderful. But she said something in that book regarding these kinds of connections that summarizes what I have known to be true for many years. And she said, "Your tribe are the people who are like-hearted, not like-minded." I'm going to say that again. Your tribe are the people who are like-hearted, not like-minded. So what does this mean? So if you've got a like-minded person, so these are the ones that you associate with who maybe think the same types of things that you think, where they or have the same beliefs. They do similar things. They are from the same place. Your associates at work. And I'm not saying that these things are bad. And it is so much more fun, and your connection can be strengthened in different ways by enjoying these same similarities. But if it's only based on those, then that's more of a like-minded connection rather than a like-hearted connection. What I think is super dangerous is when you associate with only like-minded people, there tends to be a congregation of ideals and rules that belong to this particular group. And pretty soon, if you're not careful, if you're not challenged, you have this group think that happens. And it can be very dangerous because even if that group think has wrong ideas, nobody is challenging those ideas. And so they become very closed off to differing thoughts and differing opinions. And and I'm not saying that this happens all the time, but it can happen. It is a danger that can happen that I have seen many times in my life. I have seen people who are like-minded and not like-hearted. They are very easily offended by these differences. And ultimately, it's a very superficial connection where if you make one little mistake, then you risk being canceled in some form. So, case in point, I had a friend that I used to work with, a business associate, and she was never part of my inner circle. We were simply associates, but we became friends on Facebook, and we would share different things and whatnot. And one day I shared an opinion that she didn't like, and so she defriended me. And at first I was a little offended because I was like, I just shared a differing opinion. What's the big deal? But because she wasn't, in that realm of being a close friend of mine, a soul, a like-hearted person, then she was offended by what I wrote. And I can't even remember what it was. It honestly made no difference to me. But because of that, she was offended. And so I got canceled. She canceled me. So yeah, I was hurt by that, but because I'm never out there to offend or anything like that. But she wasn't a like-hearted person. And so ultimately, it's really not that big of a deal to let that person go. It just isn't, because I don't think she would ever be a like-hearted person. Now, contrast this with people who are like-hearted. These are the people who see you as you truly are. All of the good, all of the bad, your inner workings, your outer facade, and they love you anyway. These are the people who you may have differing opinions, different backgrounds, whatever, fill in the blank. And yet they come to you with an air and an energy of acceptance and of love. These are the people who challenge you and you challenge them on your thoughts, on your opinions. And rather than being offended by that, you accept that challenge and truly think about the issue at hand. You don't have to necessarily agree with them, but a like-hearted person is going to take what they're saying into consideration and judge that and really think about, okay, does what they're saying have value? And how does that compare to what I'm saying? But again, this dialogue comes from a place of love. You can share and debate without offense. This is what like-hearted people do. And the reason why you can do that is because there's respect there and there's love there. And those like-hearted people are going to respect your values, even if they're different from their own. It doesn't mean that all of your values are going to be the same. Like it doesn't work like that, but there is love and respect for those different values. So here's another example. When I was in high school, I was blessed with some amazing friends. Now, I was the odd person who didn't drink and I didn't do any partying. And they totally accepted that in me and they knew that I wasn't going to do that. And rather than tempt me and say, "Hey, just come out and come with us and, we're going to go to this party," they would actually create different days to go out with me, knowing that I wasn't going to participate in those other things. And honestly, I didn't care if they did it. And they just knew that I wasn't going to. And so they never tempted me. They never tried to coerce me into doing something that I didn't want to do. Rather, they created space for me to participate in their friendship where I could do so comfortably. That is a like-hearted person. And I love them. I will always love my high school friends because of that. And I so appreciate their willingness to love me for who I was and for the values that I had, And so they will always have a special place in my heart because of how they treated me. They were true friends. So I ask you again, how is it that you find your tribe, right? Now that we kind of know what your tribe should be and what that kind of connection looks like, how do you actually do it? We're thrown into situations all the time where something is new or we're stretched or and it doesn't necessarily have to be moving. It could be you're in a different situation like a job or something like that, right? I think a move is a more extreme situation because all of a sudden all of your normal people are in a different location, and so it does create a different scenario. But just keep an open mind that building your tribe can happen anywhere at any time. So here's 3 steps that I think really, really help in finding your tribe. Number 1 is actively reaching out to people. And I don't just mean friends that you already have, although I do think that's important. These are the people who, if you hear somebody talking and you're like, "Oh my gosh, that sounds like a really amazing person," go up and talk to them. If you kind of have that little spark inside of interest, go and talk to them and just say, "Hey," I've done this many times, like, "Hey, I'd really like to get to know you. Would you like to go out to lunch or go for a walk or something?" Not everybody is going to respond positively. And I'll just leave it at that because I have invited people, and if they don't feel that spark or that need in reverse, towards me, then I have to allow that. And that's okay. And, even though there are people that, "Oh, I'd really like to know this person," if they're not receptive to me, then they're not going to be part of my tribe. You cannot change other people. You can only invite. So actively reach out to people. That's step 1. Step 2 is to be in places where you are more likely to find people in your tribe, like-hearted people. This is not one place. And that's what I want you to keep in mind. If you're only going to one place over and over and over again, you're not really branching out to find the people that could enrich your life in a way that you didn't think possible. Remember, so many times in my life, I have met people and I have welcomed people into my tribe who are wildly different from me. But there's that spark of connection. There's that respect. There's that love. And I have only improved myself because of my connection with these people. Okay, be in places where you are more likely to find your tribe. That's number 2. Okay, number 3 is the law of attraction. You are going to attract that which you are. And that's just the way it works. And the more that I work on myself and the more I try to become the person that I want to be, the more I see that those people who I am going to connect with on a soul level are going to be attracted to me and they will come to me. So you always think, oh, I can put myself in different places, but it's really interesting to me how when I'm actively doing that and doing my part in that, people will come out of the woodworks and want to talk to me. And that is something that is super, it's just gratifying, and it's a good litmus test. If the people who come to you and who are attracted to you are the ones that you want to connect with, then you know you're on the right path. But if not, then you kind of have to ask yourself some questions. So I've got some questions that you can ask. So here's a little self-evaluation on if you search for like-minded connections or like-hearted or soul connections. Number 1 is the golden rule. Do you treat others? I'll just do it as if you were reading it. Do I treat others the way I would like to be treated? How do you treat other people? How do I react when others say something I don't agree with? Am I open to what they're saying or am I dismissive? Number 3, what do I do when I am personally challenged? How do I show honesty with others and myself? That's number 4. Number 5, what actions do I take to develop new and existing friendships? Number 6, how do I show respect for others' opinions, experiences, and boundaries? Number 7, what does a soul connection look like for me? And number 8, what can I do today to be available to making soul connections? So I challenge you to look at your answers as you write them out to these questions. And you may even think of other questions that are pertinent to your own life. Ask those too and be honest, even if you don't like what you see. I think that's where we get the most growth, is when we can recognize something in ourselves that we want to change. And then you do it and it's lasting because you've wanted it. Steve Maraboli, I have no idea who he is, but I saw this meme and I loved it, so I'm going to share it. So this is attributed to Steve Maraboli. He said, surround yourself with people who fight for you in rooms you aren't in. Those are the people that are like-hearted. Those are the people who will be your connections. And when I say soul connections, like it's those kind of connections, those kinds of friendships that you could have decades pass before you see each other and you're still friends and you still have that connection. I challenge you to go over those questions to see where you're at with your own soul connections and look at it internally. Like, are you connected on a soul level with yourself? Because that is just as important. Remember, it's that law of attraction. If you are attracting that within yourself, you're going to attract that with others. I hope that this has been beneficial to you. I have found that soul connections, like-hearted people, are totally my jam, and they enrich my life and make my life an absolute joy. And I'm so grateful for them in my lives. And with that, I hope you all know that your purpose is in your story. You are wonderful. You are beautiful. Until next time, take care.
Celebrate your dreams, let them take flight, for you are a star, shining bright in every step you take. Let your